All right. Good morning, all you of comic book aficionados out there. Okay. Go YouTube, work with me. Work with me. While we try to reconnect. Okay, so I'm going to assume we are out there. Uh YouTube has got to get on the ball with this. There we go. YouTube says we're fine now. Okay, good morning on this September 1st. Let me move this camera around. Let me look here. September 1st, 2025. And I got to tell you, man, I had a fantastic weekend this past weekend. I hope you guys in the States are able to enjoy your weekend as well. And we got today off, which is a Monday for you people in the future. The actual Labor Day is today. So we're going to, why am I not sleeping in? Because I'm pumped. I am pumped. I've had a great weekend. Got a little kayaking in. Hit 2, 3 flea markets. Went from where I'm at in Virginia down to Winston-Salem, and we did about 99% of this with our buddy Josh. If you remember Josh, guys, he'll be popping up for some live shows pretty soon after our talk and stuff, right? So I've got to say, had a great weekend. Um, and I actually ended up buying some great stuff. What I also like is for you new guys who I hope are subscribed. According to my analytics, 70% of the new viewers are not subscribed. So take a moment here to give it a thumbs up. Okay. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you know when I do these live shows, when I upload videos and things like that. It's great to know that, let people know we're out there where we actually talk about comics and stuff, right? And actually show some of these comics and everything. So one of the great things that I've done over one, not my great accomplishment, great things that I enjoy doing. That's a better way to put it. It's got to be. It is the flea markets. This year, I decided that I was going to be a little different with what I do. I've been going to Hillsville Flea Market probably since 1999, way back in the 1990s, guy. And for you new guys that don't know that, I have tons of videos over the last 15 years where you see my hauls from Hillsville. Not only do you get great comics, at least in the past, but the deals were there to be made. The hustle, a staple of this channel used to be, and it should still be, is the Howler Hustle. I would get a huge lot of comics. They would do the math, 17 cents a piece. I got almost the entire run of Jack Kirby's Eternals that way, a ton of Hellblazers, a lot of, probably like about seriously 95% of this collection that you see and don't see around you is secondhand. Like I said, and a lot of it was, bought in the 80s by me in the late 70s. And then when prices inflated in 1990 and 91, that's when the hustles really began because I was like, I'm not paying that much for a comic. And look where we're at today. So anyway, yeah, we have a great Labor Day. I found myself up early. Saturday, I went kayaking. There's a lake about 3 miles from where I live. That was actually nice. The wife is off today. She is going to be sleeping in, and then we're going to be having some adventures. And in that time, I have a ton of comics to put up that I bought over the last month. With Myrtle Beach, I went to Myrtle Beach for vacation earlier in the week. Also, with the weekend, I did a video showing all of those great books, I'm sure. Probably a live show, I would imagine. I hope I did. It's been a lot going on. Okay, guys, so here we are. Get your coffee. We're 5 minutes in. It is time to show the haul, and we will get to the comics after I show you some things where, we tried to recapture our childhood here with some great Dr. Seuss. Here we go. And I'm going to be discussing a little bit of Neil Gaiman as we go through here. So get your funky coffee cup, get your flat cap, get your comics, kick your feet up, even turn the lights down low if you want. Let's create a mood here if you're watching on your television. So the places that I went was a Tazewell County flea market that's around here. Saturday, I decided, hey, I've been going to the Hillsville Flea Market for decades now. The last few years, it's been going downhill with what I look for. They have it twice a year, Memorial Day and Labor Day. I wasn't going to go, but I still wanted to get a taste of a little bit of a flea market, so I went to a local one. Not a lot of comics, but I did find some two or three cool things. This one guy who said he was from Florida had drove up here. I don't know if he retired and moved here, did it backwards. I don't know what the deal was, but he had a lot of stuff laid out, a lot of records. But the problem was is that a lot of it was wet. Uh, they have these bins. They just set them out. The dew set. They leave them out all night. The dew settles on them, and you're just like things are getting destroyed. Some very cool comics, key comics were to be had. But it was not going to happen, right? So I picked out three things out of his collection that I feel like I saved, and I think they're very cool. So you're going to be amazed that I'm not going to count these with the Yes Sunday haul. This is a Saturday haul, right? I think my haul from Sunday ended up coming to $10, if not a little less. So anyway, I got these Saturday, and I've rebagged them. This is a newsstand edition for you kids out there that think that's important. I got a newsstand edition of X-Men Adventures #1, a book that popped huge all over again when X-Men 97 came out on Disney. Okay, so, and people were going nuts over this. A fantastic Steve Lytle cover, a great cartoon for any X-Men fan. The things that they did in the 90s with this book were just groundbreaking. Some of the best comic book cartoons that came out were in the 90s. We had the Tick, Rusty, and a big guy and Rusty the Robot. They even had Men in Black, which a lot of people are like, that's a movie. That started out as a comic, guys. There's so many great things you couldn't shake a stick at, so it was just fantastic, and there was things that people who were making these cartoons were respecting the material, and you know what I mean. It was still a Saturday morning cartoon show. They still had standards and practices to get by, so those angry mothers didn't come out like they did in the 70s and say, look at all that violence and stuff like that. And on and on and on. So anyway, we were able to grab this at a flea market. It's probably like my third or fourth one. And then we have the greatest cartoon of the 90s, in my opinion, for your television. We got Batman and Robin Adventures, guys. This is fantastic. Paul Dini wrote this one. We come in with Templeton coming in and doing his best Bruce Timm art, if you will. Ty Templeton was someone who popped up on some of my favorite books in the 90s. I never was a Ty Templeton guy, but he delivered a story good and well. And I absolutely love these. I hate calling, this is based on the cartoon, of course, the Denny universe, the Bruce Timm universe, whatever you want to call it, however you feel about it. And I absolutely love this. Batman and Robin Adventures #1. Very glad to have this. Some of these books are actually some of the annuals and first appearance of Harley Quinn, of course, and things like that. They're actually worth a little bit of money, a little bit of scratch. It blows my mind when I find out that some of these books are up there, right? And then I thought this was very cool, but when the Batman movie in 1989 came out, I would see advertisements in comics where you get these pin sets. Pin sets were actually kind of big at one point, a little bit. So were Pogs and things like that. But the Batman merchandise was off the charts out there. There were T-shirts. It was so weird to go into Kmart and see Batman art in there. You know what I mean? It was just wild to see that stuff. And then of course they had pins. I actually have a box where I bought a few Batman pins. At I don't know, probably like gas stations or something, right? It's usually the bat symbol. Which I thought was kind of cool. I remember seeing a MTV video called a band called Flesh for Fantasy, and the video was called I Go Crazy, and the dude was wearing a Batman t-shirt with the Batman symbol on it, underneath his leather jacket. Batman was just everywhere. It's kind of weird. The keyboardist for Bon Jovi, a little bit before that, got a Brian Bolland Joker Batman tattoo on his chest, if that was real, like right there on the peg, which I thought was kind of weird. Anyway, so these pin sets come out. There's some Watchmen pin sets also, things like that. But pin sets were good, and they were on a card. I think they came out with 3 of them, and this was like $8 in 1989. Probably like $20 now if I had to imagine. I'm trying to think whose art that one is. They have several sets. This is Neil Adams, of course. The Neil Adams art reproduced there in the card. I remember they had 3 or 4 sets there, and this was like to celebrate the artists, the different artists on it. Neil Adams, Murphy Anderson, Jim Aparo, Terry Austin, Dick Giordano, Carmine Infantino, Marshall Rogers. This is telling you whose art they used on the back, still sealed. And these were classic images from the comic. Carmine Infantino with that. That is an iconic image of the dynamic duo. Okay. Terry Austin, Marshall Rogers. So it's always cool to find these. These were like $2 a piece on Saturday. You know, I actually talked the guy down. So yeah, we got that. X-Men Adventures #1. This is probably like my 3rd or 4th copy of this. I find it in dollar bins all over the time. All the time, it feels like. And then Batman and Robin Adventures, a book that I don't see all the time out in the wild. So that was Saturday's haul. After that haul, that's when I came around the house, ended up meandering. I was like, I am not sitting around the house and binge watching some show. I tried to read. I had a little bit of wanderlust in me where I did not go to the flea market down in Hillsville. And lo and behold, while I was out there kayaking, our buddy Josh, hey, Victor, good morning, Victor. How are you doing, guys? Great to see you. And good morning, Jacob. Great to see you too. But anyway, it's like my body knows. I'll wake up. I can't sleep in. I'll wake up. I have a little bit of a drive to get there. And it's like my body is like, let's go. It's like it's conditioned to know when these flea markets are going on. I find it kind of hilarious. I'm not going. Wake up bright and early, bright, wide-eyed, and ready to go on a Saturday morning. So while I was out there kayaking about 3 miles from the house and stuff, Josh, out of the blue, started texting me, asked what I had going on for Sunday. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to church or not. What do you got in mind? And out of the blue, he was like, Hillsville Flea Market, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Mckay's. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. So we got up, we went down there. And what you're going to see is a mix of comics. So the story behind getting the comics and some of these books is that there was the Hillsville Flea Market. The entire town turns into a flea market from Friday throughout the weekend all the way to Monday. And it's actually a tradition that it rains when it happens. It probably rained yesterday afternoon, and I did not go. So when we got down there, it was amazing I think we found about 5 people selling comics. We'll say 7, just to be sure, right? Maybe 7 people selling comics out of the entire town that we kind of walked. I had 9,000 steps in by 10:30. Okay, you know, on my little health app there, my health status app. You know, tracking my time in my steps. So as we were walking around and stuff, there was one vendor that Josh was talking to as I was going through some of his short boxes, and he was like, "Oh, we sold 250 comics." Like on Friday. Apparently Friday was amazing. Saturday things slowed down and the crowd hit on Sunday as we were there. So everyone we sort of talked to, I could tell the boxes had been picked and everything like that. And then there was something real strange. There was one guy or a person on the end of an aisle. If you see it, you know, they set up the tents sort of in aisles, you know, try to keep it organized and everything so you can walk in between them. And the person never showed up. They had some fantastic comics. Marvel Comics Presents, Sam Keith, Wolverine, the Weapon X story by Barry Windsor Smith, some pretty good condition stuff from the 70s and 80s. If you know, here and there, some two, 3 books I really hadn't seen in the wild too much. And the person never showed up. We never found who owned it. Nobody was there. And, you know, I'm not about to steal any comics, you know. So those were left behind. And while we were looking around there's a lot of people with a lot of stuff. There's a lot of people from Maryland came down here for some reason, right? So while we were there, I got these books here. I think they were like $2.50 a piece. One came from Mckay's. I've already took the price tags on. But I've been getting a few children's books, right? Who knows, maybe grandkids one day or something like that. The Missing Piece by Shel Silverstein, right? I'm digging the books where they still have life lessons, you know, very philosophical, versus fantastic reads that just entertain children, like this that I had when I was a kid. One of the greatest and most dramatic books you will ever read, guys. The monster at the end of this book. But it's the ones that are very... They remind me of great comic strips of the past. Perhaps they're still around. I need to get a Sunday paper and check out current cartoons, I guess. But you can read them as kids, and they're enjoyable, and you're learning a lesson. And then you have people like Shel Silverstein, and you have people like Dr. Seuss, Charles Schultz, those kind of guys. Where when you read them, there's a lot of sociological and adult themes in there that are subtext. Horton Hears a Who, the responsibility of parenting and what makes a parent, right? The Sneetches, about getting along with in other tales, stories about how to get along with people who are stubborn and more like you than you think, and the differences we see between people are petty. Okay, you know what I mean? They're superficial. Sneetches and other stories, right? The human condition. You know, if you are big into the environment and resources and things, we have the Lorax, one of my favorites, one of my wife's favorites. And then we have Yertle the Turtle and other stories. You know what I mean? I loved these things when I was a kid. Maybe this is a little bit of rebind the actual childhood, man. I read a lot, as you can tell, as I've told you before. Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing, little bit of Mark Twain as I grew older. But in elementary school, from 1978 to about, I don't know, 1982, we would go to the library maybe twice a month. Big time in kindergarten, different times as we got older. And they had a whole section of Dr. Seuss. And my goal before I got to elementary school, you can only get 2 books at a time. And my goal was to read the entire Dr. Seuss library. And then we would have troll books where we'd be able to order things and stuff, right? I didn't make it. I didn't get to read them all. And as I've gotten older, I'm like, how many Dr. Seuss books could have really been there that weren't copies and different editions and stuff, right? So anyway, looking at this art, reading some of these books, it does tie into pop culture and introduction to reading. And these things were side by side with my comic books, right? Okay, so here's the mix of things, right? I'm going to be all over the place because I've already gone through some of these books. I've already cataloged them. And for anybody that's still out there watching this and stuff, make sure you comment, man. The comments get me going. Okay, so what we have here is amazing, right? I am purging a lot of comic books. It is time for space. It is time for me to be realistic about what am I going to be able to read and what do I want to read, in the future. I mean, this has been a lifetime of reading. I have been collecting comic books for 48 years now, reading them. I've been doing YouTube for 15 years, and I got to tell you, there's been a lot of things I probably bought in order to have material for this, right? It really got me juiced to show the comic books and get feedback and be able to talk with people about them and be like, check this out. So yeah, there's been a lot of things that happen with a lot of glut, and I got to tell you, there's no regrets, But I love when things get put out in the universe and I get a haul of books that nobody's really looking for, but it's going to fill up my spaces. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this was like a box that was meant for me is what it feels like sometimes, right? So one of the things I'm actually going to end up selling off is going to be my Age of Apocalypse, the 90s crossover that took place in X-Men and the Mutant books, where they had a timeline fluctuation there where Charles Xavier was accidentally killed by his son when he went back in time to try to kill Magneto, Legion. And it ended up having repercussions where Apocalypse ended up appearing years earlier than what he had planned. And the world is like a dystopian future, and you get these versions of our X-Men that are amazing. And it took place for 4 months. All the X-Men books, it had a Alpha and Omega issues that bookend all the X books for 4 months, changing and being part of that timeline. It was pretty huge. People still talk about it. But the one that I did not get was X-Man. This was a version of Cable, where he did not get the virus, the techno-organic virus, and a few things, right? And I never saw them out in the wild. So I was like, that's 4 issues I'll never see. So I think earlier in the week, I found number 2 for $1, which blew my mind. Jeff Loeb, Steve Scorsese, which is one of the reasons I think they're hard to find. And then I found number one for $1. The men at the antique shop, Snoopers, the person had a sale where all comics were $1. I ended up getting two of them there. Josh and I went to Hillsville Flea Market, Winston-Salem, to Mckay's, ate at Big Daddy's, got a few burgers, stopped and got a little bit of banana pudding somewhere, got the wife a little snack to bring back at a little place called Peach Cobbler Factory or something like that. And then on the way back, we stopped at Snoopers, and that's where I found two books there out of this place where this guy had them for $1 a piece. So I also got this. I love my pulps. I like Tim Truman. I understand that Tim Truman has he's several years behind on a crowd-funded comic or something. The great Tim Anderson that we speak of on here, who appeared years ago on the channel in the background and stuff. Tim Anderson keeps me up. Anytime we talk comics, he gives me an update about Tim Truman. Tim Truman, I don't know if he's having health problems or what's going on, but he's done a lot of great stuff. Going way back to the 80s at least. He's also worked with the Grateful Dead, doing album covers. The guy has taught, met him several times. He had Scout, Grimjack, Sheba. There are cats in the area, be warned. I really need to put that Epic Illustrated up before the cat gets on it. Anyway, but this is from Eclipse Comics. This was a 3-issue square-bound prestige format series of a pulp character named the Spider. And this is Master of Men. I've had number 3. This is number 2. Now I need number 1. Found that for $1. I would love to tell you more about it, but I'm waiting to have all 3 issues to read it. If it's anything like Tim Truman's Prowler that he did for Eclipse Comics, where we had a character who was inspired by the shadow and the ultraviolet pulps of the time, and it went from the 40s to the 80s with flashbacks, going to when he was a young man, and in the 80s where he ends up taking up a sidekick, things like that. There should be some interesting stuff. Pulps don't play around. You know what I mean? Yeah, they're not your comic books, where the good guys are always sort of, nice and stuff, right? Now here's what's very cool. I took it at Mckay's. Mckay's is a store where it looks like all the merchandise is secondhand. It's mainly a bookstore, but it also has a huge amount of CDs, records, DVDs, Blu-rays, graphic novels, role-playing games, children's books, fiction, physics, humor, everything. You can take everything down there, and they will buy it from you, or they will give you store credit. And I took a huge amount of hardbacks I'll never read. There was 1 or 2 that were hard to give up, but I'm not going to read them. Tried to take some comics down there. I have some comics so bad they wouldn't take them. But long story short, and there were some things I got rid of that I now have a little bit of room. And I'll go ahead and be honest with you. They offered me $124 of store credit, or what amounted to $70 in cash and $4 in trade. Okay. Rounded up and everything like that. Right. So that's a good day. I took the cash because as I was looking around at Mckay's, I don't know if it's the weekend or what's going on. Josh and I talked about it. We didn't find a lot. We did not find a lot. Usually there's a plethora, if you will. The cup usually runneth over there. Oh, Victor Shade says Age of Apocalypse was pretty cool at the time. Yeah, there's some stuff that holds up, and then there's some stuff that we've really moved on. And it blows my mind it was over 30 years ago, But there was not a lot. And I'll go ahead and tell you what we have noticed, and I've commented on live shows. And I'm not really being a curmudgeon. This isn't an old man shouting at the sky. This is my observation. But it really is getting to where you go to these flea markets and these secondhand shops, and there's people getting aggressive. I don't know if it's a greed thing or if it's a case of things are drying up, and it's like throwing one banana and tossing it to a bunch of hungry monkeys. They all will turn on each other. You know what I mean? And get there. But yeah, it's like the crowds are changing. I don't know if the times are changing or what's going on. And I often laugh about this because as a man, and I don't know if anybody else is out there and stuff, but I grew up in places where I had to fight. I got beat up, and then I watched my stepdad set me down and made me watch wrestling. For some reason, something clicked, and then I was able to put up a fight. I have been thrown across the school bus and splatted against the back of a bus and smeared down. And I also have taken down giants with blood just trickling down onto their shirt and stuff. You know what I mean? Been on both sides of it, people. Been around, right? You know what I'm saying? And got the big head one time, and got knocked out. And needed it and got humbled. You know what I mean? I was a kid. I was a kid. Things like that. So what I'm trying to say is that what always um, I've always noticed is that the current generation, you really don't want to mess with the generation in front of you. They're just tougher. You know what I mean? And you don't. That's what just amazes me. It's like the human condition where these things continue to happen and stuff. It just amazes me how no matter what the generation before us, the generation here, in the generation before it, with me, the boomers before that, you didn't really want to mess with them. They were just tougher. There's just something about the way people grew up that defending yourself is just, it just amazes me how just a decade or two, there's such a difference. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's a desensitized, if I'm just sort of like seeing these young kids with their attitudes and stuff like that. And I'm just sort of like, you're going to get hurt. It just blows my mind. But I really don't know why things are happening. Maybe it's the swing. Maybe we've lived in a decade of the beta male, and now all of a sudden it's swinging back the other way where it's like they got something to prove. I don't know. I'm not part of that generation, but it's interesting to watch. Now, why does this matter? Because I've always said that when it comes to actual comic book collectors and things, we're a pretty cool breed. It's a lot like people who are into heavy metal. You know what I mean? They're some of the nicest people you can meet, and you read for a hobby, and you're able to take in ideas and out of the box concepts. And it used to be you had a lot of critical thinking across the board and stuff just from reading and taking in ideas and seeing things and stuff, right? So I feel like a lot of these people are there for a lot of the stuff has to be from greed and from trying to get things and sell them. I've seen them at Walmart after Christmas when things go on clearance. Sitting there fighting for the Legos and stuff like it's Black Friday and stuff, right? So that's all I can figure out is that it's got to be a greed thing. That's why everything was like all the bigger stuff was just sort of like been gutted. You know what I mean? And like I said, it's an observation, guys. I'm not really saying I have any answers here or really have an opinion at this time. I don't have enough information, but it's definitely there, right? And Josh and I talked about it on the way there. So I was able to go through a box where they had 35 cent books. I kid you not. All right. They actually, in some of these, they don't come at Mckay's. What they do is Josh gave me a heads up. If you have comic books, you want each comic book put in a bag. They will grade them individually and tell you what they'll give you for them, right? But if you bring them in without bags, apparently they just look at they count it as one big item and you get less money, and they put them out there. And they had these for 35 cents. And some of these were not bagged. They put the sticker right on the front, but I was able to heat them just a little bit, not enough to make the glue start melting. And I was able to pull them off in about 15 minutes on most of these books, just taking my time. So no problems, right? So one of the things I got, and these are 35 cent books. Some are yellowed on the inside. I left a lot of stuff behind. But anyway, this is a well-loved book in the condition. The pages inside are yellow, but this is Volume 4, Legion of Superheroes. What is it? The Legend of Valor. This is the 5 year after Legion for you guys that were there, right? This is where even at the tail end of the 80s, they decided to get things grim and gritty. Our traditional Legion of Superheroes book ended with the Magic Wars, and then they jumped 5 years later with a Volume 1, and it really messed people up. You know what I mean? Got it. I enjoyed it, and this is one of the annuals, the second annuals. We were catching up where a lot of these characters were for 5 years. When he was Mon-El instead of Valor, he's always going to be Mon-El to me. Basically, what happened is I think around issue 50 of the Legion of Superheroes Baxter series, there was a couple of legionnaires secretly saying we're going to take out the time trapper, and Mon-El went toe to toe with the time trapper and disappeared, and then he reappeared 5 years later in the series. you know, and then we have a little book here, a little annual. There's 3 annuals, and this is the second one. Not a lot to say about it. If you're a Legion fan, you probably already read it. Now, this is a book. This broke my heart, and I really kind of wished I went ahead. Now, these books here, I didn't pay anything for. I used my $4 in trade, so they're these books with the stickers, nothing. Okay, you followed me? Victor Shade. I have never read 5 Years After the Legion. After Crisis, the Legion confused me. Yeah, that's why I don't do a lot of Legion stuff, and I tell people to read the Jeff Johns, George Peretz Legion of Three Worlds. The first issue will catch you up. Superboy Prime lands in the 30th century, the year 3000, and he ends up going to a museum. And the museum, we it's like we're a tourist with him. The museum has automated tour guides, and it tells a history, so it catches everybody up in a few pages. You can take your time with it to learn about all three versions of the Legion and stuff, right? So yeah, I totally understand, right? That's why I don't really go into a lot of detail and stuff, right? Unless I'm giving a whole video on it. But anyway, Starman was there, right? Starman, as you guys know, could possibly be my favorite series of all time. I go back and forth with Starman, Commandy. There are times when I want to say Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, but I don't know. And then and I'm not going to do this, right? And then Commandy, Starman, and go back and forth a little bit of Neil Gaiman there. Yes, I said it with Sandman, right? But anyway, I have the entire run, and it really broke my heart because there was a ton of unbagged Starmen out there, the James Robinson 90 series, and I honestly thought about getting them. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? So why did I pick this one? This is issue number 28 because I'm going to probably do a video of this. I get a kick out of this story so much that it's time to have it on the shelf. I'll do that every now and then. I will pick up, if I find a double, it'll be my reader copy, and this is in fantastic shape. But this is a times past story. And what James Robinson did is that there are stories that usually happen around every 6 or 7 issues. You would have a times past, and it usually was the ghost of Jack Knight's brother, who I think his name was David. They would be talking. He would get to see him and talk, and it would plant seeds for things that were coming. It gave momentum to the story, right? Because David sort of knew what was going on. Well, this one is what happened. This is an adventure of the Blue Starman, Michael, who only appeared in one issue of DC Comics Special. He ends up popping in this, and we get to see an adventure of his during the 70s. Time feels like it goes by like it does for us in Starman. Like, they don't really say it, but the 70s are the 70s. And this thing feels like it's Saturday Night Fever meets exploitation movies. It has disco. It feels, and he really applied a lot of David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust to Michael in this, right? So this is a tale that takes place in the 70s. And I think it's fantastic. It feels like, I feel like walking around like Al Pacino, singing, yelling Attica and all that stuff, right? It's so much fun, in my opinion, right? Okay, Prime One Collector here is great. Good to see you guys. Everybody's waking up and popping in. I'll show you real quick for you guys that are getting here what I've shown so far. We're going to be starting moving along. Yeah, Prime One Collector. Good morning, Victor. I love Starman. I have the run and collected editions. I have collected edition, Omnibus. I have all the original issues. I absolutely love it, right? So for you guys that have just popped in, let me show you what I've shown. Make sure you have subscribed. Make sure you have thumbed up the video. Share it if you want. Hit that bell, right? So far, that's from last week. So far, we are showing that I got this for $1. X-Man #1. I just need 2 more issues to have a complete set of Age of Apocalypse, the crossover. Tim Truman's Spider. And then we have a Legion of books that I've shown. What am I missing? Yeah. And then on Saturday, I ended up getting this pin set from 1989 of Batman and Robin #1, X-Men Adventures #1. UPS got those. I think I can't remember what I say, $1 a piece or something, $2 a piece. Who knows? Now, guys, this next series, I was tickled to death to find these. Please tell me I got them all not in order, but let me get them out here. Right. So these were 35 cents a piece at Mckay's in trade, and yes, some of these are that they're not mint. You know what I mean? Like they might be very good or something, right? Fives, who knows? Fives if you wanted to do that, right? But that's not what it's about. This was, I could think, a 20 issue series. And Del Close, John Ostrander, and some other people kind of popped in there every now and then to do these stories. It's an anthology series, meaning you have 2 or 3 stories in each one. David Lloyd, a V for Vendetta fan, is one of the people that does the art on it. Don Simpson, who does Megaton Man and Splitting Image and the things like that. Um, big indie guy. He does some of it. A guy named Del Close, Del Close, who apparently is I can't figure out this guy's career, man. He seems to be a guy who coached a lot of the original Saturday Night Live people, like Dan Aykroyd and stuff, hung out with them and stuff. I don't know, man, but and all this stuff, but it's very unusual. And even though it has a DC bullet, it comes up under Piranha Press. But anyway, this is sort of like this will put you in the idea of Twilight Zone, in my opinion, mixed with indie comics and stuff. But it seems like it's more about fears and phobias and stuff. And some of the stories are lighthearted. In the first issue, it's a dude walking around naked with a duct taped blowtorch, canned blowtorch with the light going on there, and he's walking around in the dark chasing a rat or something. And then he goes up a manhole. He's in New York, and Del Close says this was 1963, and I think this is autobiographical. I'm not quite sure. So it was an acid trip. You're like, where's this going? But anyway, that's what we're trying to say. There's a lot of cool stuff in this, but it's Wasteland. I kept a 35-cent piece in there. I think I found 8 issues of Wasteland. There's 20 issues. This is from the 80s. These cost nothing, but the people that get them keep them. That's what I've found out. Since I've been showing these an issue here and an issue there, I've had a little bit of feedback and stuff, right? So I'm not going to say it's a cult book, but this comes up under the Piranha Press. That if you know anything about DC, that was something different that they published and stuff, right? Yeah, here's number 12, For the Good of Life. Tim Truman, who we were talking about, popped up in some of this. Joe Orlando came in and did a few issues. I read a story last night with Joe Orlando in here, just kind of flipping through it. And Joe Orlando is an EC Comics original, guys. Okay, he did some editing and stuff at DC. He's mentioned in Watchmen, if you will, in the back in the actual comic for that meta feel, if you will. So if you like EC Comics, man, he does the art where it feels like EC Comics of the 50s. All right, For the Good Life. Yeah, here's number 7. And like I said, these were 35 cents a piece. I don't know if I want to rebag these or not. This is just for me to actually read. Now, here's what's so funny about this, right? We'll get to the cover, right? The editing on this seems like it was loose and fast. They give credit on one issue that says Tim Truman is doing the art, but he's not there. There's an issue number 5 where they have the cover for number 5, but they messed up and put the issue number 6 inside of it. So there's 2 versions of issue 5 and 6 that you have to find in order to have the entire series, or you're just going to have a number 5 with the issue number 6 in it. You follow me? You don't really have issue 5. So that's what I'm trying to say. This thing was fast and loose, and it actually kind of fits in with it. Yeah, there you go. You have people on a subway with people looking at them. This reminded me of a Star Trek episode of a planet that was overpopulated. I felt like that was what's seen out of it. You got to look real close at some of this. Okay, so there's the dawn breaking. A lady is sleeping, but who does she have a one-night stand with? That's, is that a spider hand? Yeah, 9 in the morning. William Messner Loebs, who's a writer, did art on these. Check out this cover. This cracks me up, laying, man, I could have been in comics when I was 5. I had it. I did have it. So, yeah, who knows what's in there. It's a little kid's version. So here's number 6. All right. So, yeah, for some reason, where issue number 5, if I remember right, had issue number 6 in it. When they came out with number 6, they put no cover on it. Okay. So, like I said, the editorial felt fast and loose on this, right? Here's number 13. So, yeah, I have a pretty big run on this. I think I have issues 1 through 15 now. I would love to talk more about them, but like I said, I'm reading through them and stuff, right? So, yeah, that's, like I said, it seems to be horror stuff, comedy stuff, underground comic stuff about people tripping. I don't know, but you just never know what you're going to be in there. They had a meta story that really hooked me on the series that I'll probably have to find and do its own little video because I know I showed it on here. But they had John Ostrander and Del Close sitting in an office, sitting there like, we got to come up with some stories. DC's on our butt and stuff. Well, how about we have, they were like Swamp Thing's hot, thanks to Alan Moore. Maybe we'll have a crossover. And in the background, Swamp Thing walked right past them, went through their office and out the window, and he crossed over with them, or on their table. It was on their table. He did a crossover with them on his table as he went out, and they ended up finding one of his fruit, his sweet potatoes on his back, if you will, right? And they end up tripping for the rest of the story, So yeah, if you're into that kind of thing, it's out there. Charlton 66. I saw your message this morning, brother. If you saw the beginning of the video, I've been out kayaking. I've been on the road. I've been in Myrtle Beach, and I've got you, Anderson. I got a lot of people who messaged me. I got to catch up on. Hey, I hope you enjoyed your vacation. I did, sir. I just picked up the Lost Marvels, the Howard Chaykin collection, Volume 1 hardcover. Outstanding. Recommended. If you're recommending it, I'm going to track it down. I'm still trying to find that Tower of Shadows that you bought. Everybody, make sure you're subscribed to Charlton 66, man. He is the real deal, man. Here we go. Prime One Collector. David Lloyd art is fantastic. He, along with Kevin O'Neill, I consider gentlemanly art. Those are two greats. Two greats, Victor. I mean, Prime One Collector. Prime One Collector. Hey, John, good morning. Be like John. Make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you have thumbed this up, and make sure you've shared it. And make sure you hit that bell so you know we're going to do these things. I hope everybody's got their coffee with us today. Charlton, you've been kind words, just speaking the truth, man. No worries, right? So moving on here. So I need one more issue of this. This was 8 issues. This was a Grant Morrison. I like Grant Morrison. I go into it knowing what I'm in for with Grant Morrison. You're going to come in there, you're going to get a little bit of a mind trip, or you're going to get a lot of things that pay off in the end, or you're going to get a lot of things where this guy really was on drugs when he was writing this. And I've held off I read number 1 years ago, but he came out with 8 issues under the Vertigo banner out of nowhere of Joe the Barbarian. I remember liking the first issue. I remember thinking it reminded me a little bit of heavy metal. You know what I mean? Like this could have been a heavy metal story. Don't take my word on it, right? So over the years, I pick up an issue here, I pick up an issue there, and at least in my 3-hour circle, from this being the center, this room, I haven't ran across a lot of them. So I was surprised to find in very good shape number 7. So I now have 1 through 7 and looks for that number 8. Now, as you can see, this is by Grant Morrison, but there's a guy named Sean Murphy there who was about to become, I guess, I don't know if I want to call him a superstar, but I guess he's got cult status. He's had a lot of, he did that Punk Rock Jesus, a book I didn't like, but I could see that the guy was innovative. And then he also did the Batman White Knight stuff that seems to be out there. And very rarely does he do anything stupid online, which helps. But yeah, Sean Murphy here, right? So yeah, guy that has a definite style. He can definitely tell a story. So Joe the Barbarian, I would love to tell you what it's all about, but it's been so long since I read the first issue. I don't know. I take my time with Grant Morrison. You know what I mean? You're going to run across it. I've been finding his Green Lantern run in dollar bins, which is fantastic. I already have them all, and it's blown my mind that I had to fight to find his season 2. I think he did 27 issues total of Green Lantern. And that's what my whole point is they eventually do pop up. You know what I mean? So let me think. These were 50 cents a piece. Okay. Ran into a guy at the flea market and he said 50 cents a piece, 2 for $1. And I was like, okay, I'll do that all day long. And first I want to show you is by Neil Gaiman, but I want to make a little comment about Neil Gaiman and what I've seen. For you guys that are popping in, I talked about what Mckay's was. Mckay's is a store where you take everything and anything, comics, books, records, toys, even some electronics, whatever. Down there, they'll give you store credit or they'll buy it from you. You'll get more store credit. And it's just everything. Shelves and shelves of books, graphic novels in the back, records, CDs, everything. And the amount of Neil Gaiman books that were there. I took one back called Neverwhere because I'm never going to read it. I kept the Smoke and Mirrors and stuff, right? But the actual books and the graphic novels of Sandman, right? That was wild. But mostly his books. in the young adult section, they had shelves and shelves of the Graveyard book, whatever that is, the Graveyard Stories, or whatever he has. In his fantasy section, they had tons of his books. I mean, it was shelves and shelves and shelves. In mythology, they stuck his Norse mythology in that section. In fantasy, they had Neil Gaiman books. I have never seen so many Neil Gaiman books, right? It's like his fans who this generation or generations of people who seem to think in black and white. By no means is my taking up for Neil Gaiman. That's not what I'm saying. If you don't want his stuff because it's tainted, I completely understand. But it just blew my mind how everybody seems to have dumped his stuff. And not only are they dumping his stuff, that it's all there untouched. The shelves around are picked through and half empty and things like that. And then you have all the Neil Gaiman stuff where the shelf isn't. It is. It's not that. It's not only is it full, but they have them stacked sideways in layers of all his books and stuff, right? So yeah, I was sort of like, wow, you know. And this is a case in point. This is going to be my third set of this because it does have. It's not Neil Gaiman's best story. This is from like 1988. He was really getting rolling, I guess, figuring his way and stuff. But the Dave McKean art in it is beautiful. If you know who Dave McKean is, he does all the covers for Sandman and a lot of Vertigo books, and he's worked with Neil Gaiman before, right? So this is 3 issues of a prestige series when this was still an event of Black Orchid. Okay, and I think this thing is fantastic. It was a slow burn. By the time she finally gets to the Amazon jungle, it finally takes off. I want to say Swamp Thing popped up, but I can't remember. But we learned about the Black Orchid and Dave McKean's art. This is what it looks like inside. Absolutely brilliant, you know, just this beautiful art. It really surprised me after seeing how harsh he can be. This beautiful stuff, right? So yeah, that was 100% for the artwork. Josh and I were talking, and I'm not speaking for Josh, or these are 50 cents a piece. I'm not speaking for Josh, but it kind of blows my mind how I don't know, the last decade, how the culture has shifted, that it's all black and white. People thinking absolutes is what it feels like. Okay, this person is trash. He's done something horrible. That's it, gone, and all that stuff. They don't realize that 2 things can be true at the same time. Neil Gaiman allegedly can be trash, you know what I mean? But at the same time, he could be a great author. They both, one does not cancel the other one out. We got the cat over here messing with the camera. Come here, Sheba. Say hello, Sheba. Oh. All right. This is Shiva. Some of you guys have watched her grow up. What you looking at? I don't know. Can you hear her? She's chirping with us. I don't know if she thinks we're giant cats or if she thinks she's human. Oh. Shiva. Shiva for you guys out there. Yes, my wife rescued her from off the road. Somebody as a kitten, she either got caught in somebody's wheelbarrow or something, and the car eventually threw her out, or the person actually threw her out on the side of the highway. And when my wife had her, she was like all cut up across her face. So she's definitely a rescue. These were also 50 cents, right? And as I talk about purging books and stuff, there's a book that has, you know, as I watched, and I was there and I loved it all. We can look back on comic history in 2020, and some books need to be praised more, or they were praised at the time, and time has gone by. And it blows my mind. This is over 30 years ago, right? But Mark Waid had a solid decade where he wrote everything. I loved everything the guy wrote until he did Superman Birthright and his Legion of Superheroes reboot. The 3-boot Legion of Superheroes, those were awful. I know a lot of people that really like his Superman Birthright. I didn't. I was like, oh, it was a step back. I don't know. It was just really bad, right? But in the time where in the 80s, where I was collecting comics and already been reading since about 77 and watching things happen, things started getting grim and gritty with all our characters, and horrible things started to happen to them. Everybody wanted to be Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns. If you're a collector of any kind, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? They just didn't get it. They just want to be grim and gritty. And all of a sudden in the 90s, it became about, big guns and pouches and no feet. Wolverine was everywhere, and this Punisher and Ghost Rider, The anti-hero was big. And then all of a sudden, this one little book that had been written, started out with Mike Baron and Jackson Geis in '87, and then Messner Loebs came on there, and he actually had been doing Johnny Quest, and he would actually do great things on Wonder Woman. You know what I mean? And I guess his Flash book was there. I don't know. It might have fans. And then all of a sudden, we have this guy, Mark Waid, who he'd been doing a little Justice League Quarterly, and he'd been behind the scenes as an editor. I'm sure he's wrote stuff and stuff. All right. All of a sudden, he's writing this lighthearted book. He's making the book a little bit more lighthearted, but things are going on. And he's pulling other speedsters from the golden age, like the Flash, the original Quicksilver that he renamed Max Mercury. And all of a sudden, there's a legacy and there's a future. And Mark Waid's starting to also write Legion of Superheroes, and we get XS, and he pulls the Tornado Twins in from Legion of Yesteryear and all that stuff like that. And all of a sudden, this book gets up, and then Mike Ringo, oh God, I hope I'm saying that, old Ringo comes on there, that artist and stuff, right? And these guys would eventually jump over to Marvel and end up taking over the Fantastic Four together and stuff, right? So I have a soft spot for a book that went back to sort of Silver Age roots and embracing legacy and stuff, and starting out with, hi, I'm Wally West, I'm the Flash, with every book gave it a personality and really made Wally West. You saw that he really did earn the mantle of the Flash. It almost, one of the things that I liked in the zeitgeist of comicdom, back in the day before the internet and everything was everything for the internet, and we were able to communicate a lot more, is that people who read Cross Different Earths, people who knew the Flash and Barry Allen and things like that. I was a fan because of the Super Friends, you know what I'm saying? And, the book and stuff, all sort of had this agreement without ever speaking it. The same mindset that if Barry Allen ever came back, it better be a hell of a story. It's okay for him to stay dead. And then to have Wally West come in and have the Kid Flash become the Flash. That's what was so cool. Barry Allen needs to stay dead unless it's an event. That's a hard story, and nobody ever really discussed it. I don't remember seeing any articles in any Amazing Heroes or Wizard or anything discussing it. It's like we all just knew. So even though I'm going to be selling a bunch of that stuff, getting rid of it at some point, and keeping certain stories like the Return of Barry Allen and some of those stories that I really like, Mark Waid had taken a break, and Grant Morrison and was Brian Augustine on there? Anyway, Mark Miller, Grant Morrison, I feel like there's maybe another fill-in writer. Mark Waid kind of took a break around the 130s from the Flash, and then came back and he built up to 150. And in the 150s, this is like sort of an underrated story, but it may be a trope now. But we had like this mystery of this future Flash, like who is this future Flash here? And he was grim and gritty. Everything that I was just talking about, with what the book was, we get this future version of the Flash, and you get this new, look at that, this new logo there, if you will, right? So this ran for a few issues. They don't leave you hanging very long on who the Flash is, but yeah, this is a cool story of the Flash from the future. 50 cents a piece. I'm probably missing 2-3 issues of that storyline now. That's what's wild. Mark Waid Flash had its fans, even though it had moments. It was a hot book. You know what I mean? But even when it wasn't considered a hot book, it had its loyal fans, and that's why it's kind of hard to get some of the issues. Okay, what we got here? People are just in here, brother. Charlton, Mark Wheatley, and Mark Hempel will be at the shop on Saturday. That is fantastic, man. Oh my gosh. I think I've met Mark Wheatley. Great guy. If he has he's still keeping the 60s alive, man. Long white hair, I think. I know I've met Mark Hempel at the Baltimore Con. I'm pretty sure. And I think there's a signature you helped get me there. If I don't want to put out our private conversations there. Signing, God, was it Mark? Yeah, Mark Hempel. Yeah, you got that. Yeah, it's all coming to me, man. Get some caffeine on the brain. It'll all come back to me clearly. Oh, their new Breathtaker hardcover. If I want to, I'll let you know, man. If you want a signed copy, let me know. Yeah, I'll let you know. I'll message you, man. Appreciate that. Here we go. Victor Shea. Do you think Barry Allen should have stayed dead? No, no, no. The way they brought him back was just fine with Final Crisis. It had to be an event. What they should have done, though, is have a better plan for Wally West. Yes, there's a way Barry Allen should have came back, but Wally West to me was the Flash. Barry Allen should have came back. Should Barry Allen Flash have come back? I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. I think Mark Waid and the fandom that was built organically through story for so long, Wally West, it was his time as the Flash. But with the Flash, man, I could do a whole video on Flash. I never thought about this like this, right? But you have to understand when Barry Allen Flash was around, we still had the Golden Age Flash going around in another town. You follow what I'm saying? So the way the Flash legacy works in the Flash Museum, it's like there could be more than one Flash running around. You follow what I'm saying? They have completely screwed up Wally West. Over and over and over. That's all I'm going to say. And he didn't deserve it. He earned being a Flash. You follow what I'm saying? If you read him in Teen Titans, like with Marv Wolfman, he didn't want to be in the Titans. He didn't want to be a hero. And there was things he was under the spell of Raven that a lot of people don't realize. You know, Raven actually messed with his emotions and stuff. You know what I mean? You know, he just was like a plot device more than a character for a long time. This series, you know, around Crisis, he became a character. And guys, there's Kid Flash fans from way back and stuff. That's cool, man. Just the way I read it. You know what I'm saying? I think the death of Barry Allen was a great storyline. It was. It absolutely was. I agree with you. Okay, now this is another hot book, right? I have honestly said many, many times over the years that when they announced that King the Conqueror, the dude with the thigh-high purple boots, the guy who comes from the future and goes to the 1960s and gets his butt handed to him, I'm like, this is your big villain. This is one of the few times I was very, very happy where we moved on from Kang, you know, no matter what happened. Kang the Conqueror to me is not your Thanos level threat. You know what I mean? He is not the villain of villains. You know what I mean? I've never understood how they've kept bringing them back. I don't know. I don't get it, right? You know what I'm saying? So Kang the Conqueror, he's one of those guys that, I mean, think about it. The guy's so diluted that in the 80s, they ended up having the Council of Kongs pop up to where we have thousands, if not millions, if not an infinite number of different versions of him. You know what I'm saying? Oh. So my whole point is in the midst of that, this was a hot book for 5 minutes because people thought this was, for some reason, I don't know why they thought this. This seems to kind of happen sometimes where people make assumptions and those assumptions go off. I think it's because it was a newer comic and more accessible comic, and there was a lot more printed. Then you go back to the 60s and stuff that people want their keys. You know what I mean? And people try to manipulate the market and get it in their mind that this is a key book. But for some reason, this version of Kang the Conqueror or whatever this is my second copy. I believe it or not, I need issue 50. I think this is volume 3 or 4 of the Avengers. They're starting to do the renumbering, but it's 456. But issue 41, you know, the legacy number is 456. But this was a grand epic story that Kurt Busiek came in, and Alan Davis and Kerwin Dwyer, and I feel like maybe George Perez may have gotten a little bit into this stuff, right? But Kurt Busiek came in and did this epic Kong the Conqueror storyline and stuff, right? And I need issue 50. If I can find issue 50, I can sit down and finally read it. But the long story short, with this fantastic Alan Davis cover, this was a key book for a while, guys. I don't know if you remember that. You know, I mean, like, I'm sure if you go through the hundreds of speculator videos, you might be able to find the one for that 1 week and make sure that everybody went to eBay to pay probably like $50 for a dollar book. But yeah, this is like my second or third one. And I like getting these when speculators have said, I do when I run across books that speculators have gotten everybody excited about and show you they're still out in the wild in a dollar bin. To get one for 50 cents is even better for me. You know, I'm like, it gives me faith. It gives me faith in the hobby a little bit. Now, these are dollar books that I'm going to show you here. Is this it? Yeah, we're about done, guys. Now, these were dollar books. So as you can see, I did the math last night. If I take out the books from Saturday where I was just local and I count Hillsville, Mckay's, the trade-in, the dollar sale that was at the thing, these didn't even come to $10, guys. Okay. And even with the other ones, it was like maybe 13 or something. $10. Got them in trade, 50-cent boxes, dollar boxes. And to be honest with you, I know things probably got picked through on Friday and Saturday and stuff where I went on a Sunday and everything like that. I still found some great stuff. Now, what do I wished I'd picked up when I found these books? Well, they had a huge, listen to me saying huge. They had a substantial run of John Carter World Order Mars, but they were sort of in this shape. Yellowed pages inside. They were complete. Some of the covers still have a sheen on them. And these are reader copies, and I'm well aware. And I ended up double dipping one time, which is fine, right? So these are books I got for $1. I think this was a comic book shop out of Greenville, North Carolina, set up at Hillsville Flea Market. I got the guy's card upstairs. There was some guy with a GoPro on his hat and walking with a girl, and I knew what he was doing. I said, "Do you have a YouTube channel?" And he handed me his card. I did not tell him I had a YouTube channel. So there was YouTubers walking around Hillsville Flea Market. So if you want to see the flea market, that people are making videos like that, right? So anyway, so this was at the stand. It's all coming back to as I remember it. But these were dollar books. He had 3 or 4 other small boxes, short boxes of other stuff that was priced $5 and $10 and up. And the guy was telling me how the guy found some Silver Age books, or I don't know. He was talking about how the guy in Greenville at this one comic book shop, the name may come back to me. He's like, he's a bit of an odd fellow. Like, he does judge you by what you read. And like, if you read some book that he hates, you're dead to him. You know what I mean? I thought that was kind of odd. Then he was talking about how this guy ran across a fantastic collection. I don't know where we were going with it because I was flipping through the books, and I put all the John Carter World Order Mars back. I can't, I was like, if I walk away and it's 20 minutes later and I feel like I missed them, I'll go back. It never hit. So this is what I got. Marvel 2-in-1 Man Thing for $1, number 43. This turned out to be double dipping. Now the sheen is very good on it. It's complete inside, but like I said, it is starting to yellow in there because this has got to be close to a 50-year-old book. Why did I get this one? Because it has early John Byrne art, but there's tons of people inking it. There's so many people inking this thing. It just says John Byrne and Friends artist. That's it. So I guess anybody who wanted to ink, and some of the inks in this are horrible in some of these, right? So this is from 1978. Yeah, I was in kindergarten, right? So it's early John Byrne art thing and the Man Thing. And when I say early John Byrne art, I mean in his 70s stuff. That is some of my favorite stuff, right? And we all know what happens if the burn victims hear you say something like that. They come after you like they did Ed and Nick back in the day for you old timers. John, great deal. Yeah, appreciate it. And then this is what I'm saying. I read my books. I'm at the point in my collecting journey to where I'm filling in gaps. It's time for me to go back and read some of these things I have boxed up from beginning to end, or to get those issues. I did this with Cerebus years ago. It was time to finally read all 300 issues and stuff. It's time to finally read some of this stuff, right? Even though I do read tons of books, there are things that as you see, I'll wait till I have all of them. It's time for me to get that Avengers number 50. You know what I mean? So these, I put one back because it was number 19, very beat up. This number 15, a little bit more beat up than I would want. But like I said, I'm going to read these, right? I have tons of Steve Gerber, Howard the Duck. I don't want to say I'm a super fan of Steve Gerber, but looking back on it, the guy was Vertigo before there was Vertigo. You know what I'm saying? Like, this guy was ahead of his time, definitely in the Bronze Age. So we have the first appearance of Dr. Bong, for you sensational She-Hulk, John Byrne reading fools out there. You know that Dr. Bong popped up in an issue of that, right? So yeah, the mysterious island of Dr. Bong, right? So the great thing about this is that it's not only is it Steve Gerber, but you had great artists like Frank Bruner, Gene Colan, and I don't know who Ramsey was, but thanks for the comics. I'm assuming that's probably somebody's last name. But yeah, this is great Gene Colan art with Klaus Johnson, fame doing that. Uh, I tell you what, man, I grew up in the 80s. I love my 80s books of that era. I love that stuff, man. But something about the Bronze Age, man. That's the stuff. That's the stuff I just enjoy reading. So much in it. So much the dynamics there, and they still had like just a drop of innocence in there. I don't know. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. It's got that X factor. Issue 25. Steve Gerber left the book at some point, but this is still, he's the writer and editor on it. Gene Colan. So we still, and Gene Colan art. So we still have these Howard the Ducks. I need very few issues now for that volume 1 run. Oh man, 1978, man. Same old Marvel, number 28, Cooking with Gas. This has got to be the Marv Wolfman one. Yeah, Marv Wolfman, guest writer with Carmine Infantino art. I went back and forth with getting this, but I'm like, you want to try to complete it, right? So there you go. Gene Colan cover. A lot of those guys are World War II vets at the time or had been in the Army, served. The draft was still going on and things like that. So, of course, those guys can draw military stuff without a problem. I'm ex-military myself, guys. So, thanks for everybody that has popped in. Make sure that you are subscribed, thumbs it up, share it, let people know we are here. Thanks for everybody popping in. Charlton66. I will be going through my messages here in a little bit. Love Howard. Kiss made the first appearance in issue 12. Colin was great. Yes. That's probably, I secretly think that's why the stepdad had some issues of Howard the Duck. The first Howard the Duck I read was in 1978 when I was in kindergarten. It was number 2 with the space turnip dude. You know what I mean? Like, if you know this book. But the stepdad was a Kiss fanatic. His bedroom was nothing but Kiss posters, his record player in the corner on a table, his milk carts of albums. I can't remember any other albums he had except the Kiss records. I remember watching Phantom of the Park and, of course, the Howard the Duck issues of Kiss. Now, what's wild about that, you saying that, is I don't know, maybe it's Facebook or something, but apparently over the past year, Gene Simmons has been on a lot of YouTube channels and podcasts and interview sessions. The one on Funko Pop cracked me up, but I think Funko Pop has its own YouTube channel, and I think that's where I just watched an interview with him where he said that Howard the Duck is the only Kiss art he does not own. Whenever he has done contracts with Marvel and Image, anybody, he always gets the original art given to him. So he owns all the original Kiss comic book art throughout all the ages except for the Howard the Duck stuff. Yeah, so I think that's fantastic. And Gene Colan nailed it with them. That's just fantastic. That's just a great. I'm telling you, 1978 to 1982 is an era all of its own. The rise of the arcades, the rise of video games, the rise of electronic toys at the house. Kids started getting a little bit more preppier in their how they dressed leading up into the 80s. The movies, it's its own era. I mean, I know we go by decades, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, but I'm telling you, 78 in that post Star Wars world, 78 to 82 is its own little magic world, man. All right, guys, you guys enjoy your day. I hope you guys have your Labor Day off. Make sure you check out all the guys in this. I'm so glad to see so many great people in this. Charlton, it's always great when you pop in here. Oh, man, always. And guys, read your comics and be excellent to each other. Later.